We survived another Continental Championship, and this was an event to remember.
We take a look at the event as a whole and how Destiny moves forward from here.
We will also take a look at the GenCon meta, its surprises, and how this might evolve going into Nova.
This is episode 139. It's an Ewok celebration.
You have been well trained.
No. You don't have to carry a sword to be powerful.
I won't fail you.
Oh, do not.
I'm not afraid.
Please don't try.
Welcome back to another week of the Chance Cube. We have survived yet another Gen Con, another Continental Championship, which is pretty cool because Gen Con is always seen as the kickoff to the big competitive season of Star Wars Destiny. It's always the biggest event coming out of the summer. Usually we've had a lull in regionals and store champs and whatever they're calling them these days. And here we are. Gen Con's really kicked it off in full swing, followed by Nova and now the newly dated Worlds now in October. So plus another Prime season. The first
cool.
Prime season, which is another regional season, which is all complicated, but it's all good.
Yes.
And it was an event to remember. I think this is why when we talk about convergence and the convergence meta, we didn't really see much because there was not a lot of events to even talk about. So it's good to kind of be at this spot
true.
again.
Yeah. That's fair. There really hadn't. You're right. There really hadn't been a lot of events yet. So that's probably why it felt like it went by so quickly too.
Right.
I mean, other than the fact that it actually went by so quickly.
Yeah, right. It was a little different for my group because we had a GQ and we had a box tournament kind of thing. So we had a couple things in those few months. But
cool.
It is nice to have a bigger sort of Gen Con size event to look at and talk about and get excited about it.
To look at and talk about. Speaking of looking at and talking about, Kim, I think you've got something new.
I have a new computer that I haven't figured out how to work yet. What's new with that? The not knowing how to work it part, at least. But with all our trials and tribulations that we've run into, and the fact that we're going to be at Nova streaming, I went ahead and picked up a newer laptop.
Very cool.
And I'm pretty excited, because this one works most of the time.
Excellent.
The person on the other end of the keyboard is the one who's not always working on the other end. But we're getting there.
I love it. That's awesome.
We're getting there.
You speaking of Gen Con, you had a little bit of a connection to the event as a whole, and
I didn't get
everything outside of Star Wars Destiny. So, what can you tell us that has come out of the other side of Gen Con?
There's this really cool guy some of you may know, also named Mike Hill, who was at Gen Con and sent me some fun pictures. He got to meet the world record holder for Donkey Kong, who I didn't know, but Jim actually knew. I can't think, but that's beside the point. I was going to see if I could figure out what his name was really quick, but it's not. Nope. A whole bunch of nopes. But the dude's got a giant thumb, so I guess it's fair that that's how he won Donkey Kong. Anyway, so with that goodness, you're going to start seeing, we're going to get some more review content up on Tabletop Rebellion. Starting tonight, actually, Mike Hill's first article will drop regarding one of the games that he played there. So we're starting to ramp up that stuff, finally. So we hope that you drop by the site and visit.
That's awesome.
You got some goodies.
I'm excited about
you got
that.
the Power Rangers game. You got some games from Renegade that look pretty fun. And I've got some stuff that I had some Gen Can't, so I got a couple of games. It's called Gen Can't because you can't go. But North Star Games I was able to get, I've probably mentioned on the show before, but a game called Quacks of Quedlinburg, I was able to get its expansion. And that's not available. The rest of the copies won't be available until September, so I did a little happy dance at work when I got my hands on that one.
Awesome.
And I got the expansion to Pearlbrook. I got the expansion Pearlbrook for Everdell. So it's a very pretty game. So we'll have some coverage coming. All new goodies.
Neat.
Very cool.
Love it. Can't wait to see it. I was able to attend a preview of Galaxy's Edge today, which was super exciting.
So jealous.
You should be. I
am.
It's pretty awesome. Got to go into Oga's Cantina. try some blue milk, purchase more stuff than I probably should have. But
what did you think of the blue milk?
Was blue milk good?
It was actually good. I can't even really describe the taste of it, but it reminds me of like an old like a candy mixed with like a little bit of half and half. That's not even right, because blue milk doesn't really taste. It doesn't really taste dairy because it's not
milk.
dairy.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't
not milk.
taste like milk at all.
But it's creamy. It has like the texture of milk, but of very different flavor. It's very strange. And since we're at Disney World and at Hollywood Studios and not restricted to the whole no alcohol in Magic Kingdom situation, there are alcoholic varieties of blue milk. So,
Wow.
Forgot about that.
yeah.
I did see somewhere that they were going to have alcoholic, because you can get alcoholic Dole Whip, which is glorious. So,
Well, that's also a thing. But I'll do a show and tell sometime on the show of the stuff that I got. Nothing too exciting, but something somewhat related to this particular show, which is kind of cool. So
nice.
More on that later. Mike, anything to add to our assortment of randomness?
Not really. Played in a local tournament. That was fun. I played Qui-Gon. He was, more interesting with Jedi lightsaber than before it. I don't
Nice.
know if he's great, but he was fun to play. Started going back to work. I'm a teacher, so my summer's ending. And I've mostly been doing real world work instead of Star Wars work for the last week, but
So overrated sometimes.
it's that time of year.
Is it sad that my real world work is Star Wars work?
A little.
Womp womp.
A little excited. I got a lot of Star Wars posters in my classroom. I was hanging those up.
Oh, that's cool.
A big old Kylo Ren. No, all the kids are probably like, why does he like this guy? I'm kind of like, why do I like this guy?
That's fair. All right.
I saw some Harry. I'm surprised you have Star Wars rather than Harry Potter, because I saw a couple Harry Potter rooms that I almost sent over to you because I thought they were pretty cool.
I have both. I have several of the movie posters hanging up. My room's basically just, pop culture, Star Wars, Harry
Nerddom.
Potter.
I like it.
I love it.
It's all the nerd stuff. Yep, I love it.
That's cool.
All right, so we're going to jump right in. There's really not much news to report, aside from the fact that GenCon happened, and since that is the subject of the show, we're just going to sit here and talk about it for as long as we possibly can, or until I tell everybody to shut up.
But you know what I always say, speak softly and drive a big tank.
So we're going to start with GenCon as what FFG brought to Star Wars Destiny, and then we'll jump into the tournament itself and the meta and all that stuff.
Wait a minute. What we're going to talk about what FFG brought for Star Wars Destiny, because that's going to take like 32 seconds.
Do I have to talk about that Keyforge machine?
Keyforge machine.
I think they forgot they had another game while they were there, to be perfectly honest.
Part of me thinks they needed to support Keyforge and the new Destiny be okay, but
I'm kind of wondering.
Perspective.
They're really it's almost like they're pushing it extra hard.
there's a lot of money in Keyforge and it hasn't. What has it done? The OP is not spectacular. The sealed format's fun, but I haven't seen a lot of staying power otherwise. And some of the people listening might, be able to contradict me on that, but I don't know. I think they probably thought it needed more of a shot in the arm than Destiny did.
That's an interesting perspective, because I really hadn't thought about that. Because, we found out about the release of, or at least they spoiled the next set, Covert Missions, a week or two before GenCon, just to say, hey, it's happening. And then they got, which is odd that they wouldn't have used that platform at GenCon to talk about the next set, because they have in the past. I want to say last year was when they talked about, because GenCon's when we found out, or at least got a little bit more about the set. And in their in-flight report, FFG totally skipped over Destiny. They covered almost every single other of their Star Wars property games, I believe. I know X-Wing and Armada. Did they talk about Imperial Assault?
Imperial Assault, I think, is even less love than Destiny does, and I have a feeling you will hear the end of that game before too long.
Sure.
I have no inside information. I just think that's the next
one to go. Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Jason.
I was just gonna say that seeing the new stuff coming for X-Wing and Armada, because I know there's the two games they're from a figure standpoint really trying to push, and of course Legion as well.
Are Armada does have an incredibly cool ship coming that's like as big as a small toddler.
Right? That's wild.
I did see that. They did that got posted somewhere. I did see that.
Well,
Imagine bringing that to game night.
Right. And then I was thinking about how FFG promotes their games and how a CCG is so different for them, because with X-Wing, like the Gold Squadron podcast can't spoil something coming from X-Wing because that's not how the product's released.
Right.
Right? They release some small things and they're fixed. There's nothing, there's nothing random or customized. Like there's customizable, but not random about the distribution.
Turn the package around backwards. What is
this
it?
Is coming. What's
That's
it
about
here?
it.
So let me be positive for a second about Destiny in that from that perspective, before we go the other way. I think people are still talking about it. There were like 400 people watching the final stream. Mm-hmm. It's got over 1,000 total views already. You had not quite 150 people in the tournament, which is down, but there's a lot of reasons for that we don't have to go into immediately. And I think that Destiny's fine. It's got Primes coming up in a couple months. It's got World scheduled for October. There's a new set on now. I think if you're FFG and you're sort of sitting at the controls of your multi-million-dollar company and you have to figure out which game needs your help, it might not be the one that's doing okay. And so maybe it's a wrong decision. You probably should have given it some attention, but I think if you could get away with not supporting one, it's probably the one that's doing fine. It's top 10 in sales for a game that's a couple years old. I think that's fine.
That's totally fair. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a good way to think about it. Because you may not be, and you may not be with that, but I think you're right. I think a little coverage would have been helpful.
Yeah, something
to go like, oh, we didn't forget that we have this game.
How about give us a spoiler, hand out a promo at the booth. I mean, how hard is that?
Yeah, something. That would have been, because they've done that in years past.
Yeah.
That being said, the GQs at GenCon did show off like brand new spot glosses. So, and there wasn't a lot of coverage on that, but just the fact that there's half a dozen new spot glosses that dropped at this event, that's pretty good.
And again, I think I'm not like panicking about the fact they didn't have Destiny front and center.
There you go. There's a gift for everybody.
I was just like, I started to wonder if Organized Play. I was watching their Facebook post, and they're posting winners from a lot of the other events, and it wasn't until the day after that they actually posted the Destiny winner. Because for a minute I thought,
I was wondering that myself.
Are they not going to post anything? Like,
but let me ask. Again,
I'm glad they did.
In a way, I'm playing devil's advocate, but
you're allowed.
Did anyone not know who won?
Well, that's very true.
You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't relying on the Organized Play page to tell me who won the tournament.
No, I just thought it was. My mom taught me if you don't have enough for everybody, then you don't share. So I thought if they're going to post pictures of all the winners, they have to make sure they get them for all their games, or else.
Yeah.
This is interesting that you said that, and I don't know why I just thought about this, but when we were streaming Worlds last year, I think we were peaking at around 250, 300 viewers as we were going through the top cut. And then, but once we got to the finals, FFG stream 1,200 because of the brand, because it is FFG, which is. But I would argue that if a content creator was streaming even that final match for Worlds, it wouldn't have gotten that high. So I think there's something to be said of FFG taking the stand to post a picture of their winners, right? Because then it's going to get exposure beyond the community of the game is going to. Because they want to bring more sales, they got to bring in new players, not the existing player base. How do you do that? I don't know. I mean,
100%. And to that point, is it that hard to pay the extra couple $100 for that stream to go off nice and easy and have a setup ready? Well, no. But I'm trying to foil the gloom and doom, and so my perspective
We're not
would be
gloom and doom.
I am. It's fine. I'm very gloomy and doomy occasionally.
She's stepping very slowly toward a soapbox when I.
Nah.
Oh, it's good. No, but I really think how Gen Con was covered, and the fact that the Hyperloops were able to get a stream set up and devise a way to get some commentary from Jacqueline and the Golden Dice was a great setup, and it worked really well considering that. In our experience, streaming an event when you don't have a lot of space or you don't have a lot of equipment. That was actually a really creative solution because we've done streaming without commentary because we didn't want to bother the players. Yeah. And being able to use a small platform and then shoot that stream to someone else who is not even local, so there's no concern of any sort of audio bleed with your commentators and the gameplay. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they did a good job.
I do think there's an argument for FFG posting a link to that stream.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure.
Even if they don't do it themselves. Now that means, I guess, they're responsible for the content, but at the same time,
well,
you got to find a way. I
would agree with you on that. Yeah, I would agree with you. Somehow. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's they're exposing your game. It's not like they're doing you a favor by getting you exposure. I mean, now granted, it's the community that's, you're not, right. You may not be getting any new watchers in on that, but it's still, and I think part of the reason it was high is everybody thought Ewoks were good, but I don't know that anybody thought they were that good, like to go all the way to the top. So I'm sure that kind of helped with wanting to, and as quickly as that match went.
Mm-hmm. Hashtag controversial opinion. I'm not really sure they are. I think they were very good for that tournament.
Sure. Well, like we've said before, and I think even when you were on the show last, is like how this is they're able to be where they were because this was an awful short amount of time for prep work on this. I don't think that Ewoks will turn around and win Nova.
Right. So
I think you'll see a ton of copy decks at Nova. But I don't think
it is interesting.
It's a very hard deck to pilot, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting when you think about speaking of the meta of the event and the meta of GenCon in general. There's probably they're getting more and more plentiful as the days and months and years go on. But the competitive teams that are teching and deck teching and testing are always holding something back, right? They don't, because they know that the content they put out is influencing the meta. So then you have the Hyperloops come and bring the Ewok Warrior deck and come and do so well with it. For everyone who played that deck, there were three of those decks in the top 22, all three piloted by members of that community. So it was really interesting to see that transpire throughout the event, and I'm trailing off because I'm reading text messages. I apologize. So someone save me.
I mean, I'm not disappointed. I think it's fun. I think it's good and healthy for the game to see a fun. I think I even heard somebody mention budget deck like that win.
Mm-hmm.
It is a budget deck for sure.
Because I feel in years past they've been pricey decks. You've got the most demanded card. Now I'm sure it won't be as cheap now because the demand for those cards will go up.
I would say so. It's interesting, right? I guess where do we want to take this conversation? Because we could talk about that deck, or we could talk about a wider variety of things. Is that do we want to dive into that deck?
Let's go ahead and dive into that deck, right? So for anybody who didn't follow, who hasn't followed GenCon, GenCon was taken by Mike Jim from the Hyperloops, piloting Chief Chirpa, Hoth Trooper, 3 Ewok Warriors, with Armored Reinforcement as a plot, which is not the plot that has been typically chosen with that character pairing, which I guess is kind of the interesting little tweak there. But go ahead, Mike. You're probably a resident expert on opinions on this one.
So this deck is really cool, right? Because you want to splash red in your Ewoks. People have talked about that for a while. But if you do it, your point values get all weird because you end up with 3 left over, as opposed to the 4 to add another Ewok, like FFG probably intended with the point cost of Chief Chirpa. So Armor Reinforcement's the best plot at that value. It's just how do you use it? And I think what the Loops did with Across the Galaxy was really smart because Arena of Death it's your key card. It's how you win. If you get to the end of that game, I think that they posted an article earlier that mentioned this a little bit, but I'll get into it now at a slightly, I guess, more at length. There's a concept in card games called inevitability. The idea that each deck is going to have an in-game state. And one of those decks is going to have an in-game state that's better than the other one. And it's inevitable that you're going to win if you reach that state, because your deck is better, at that point in the game. And the Ewok deck has a game state not far in. I mean, you're talking probably as soon as they're about 6 health left, where back-to-back claims on Arena of Death is the end of the game. And there's nothing to be done to stop it. And so, more than any other deck we've seen, this deck pushes that game state. And all Armored Reinforcement does is let you tutor the free pod racer to ambush and play across the galaxy. That's the entire reason it's in the deck, to make sure you get Arena of Death. And that lets you play aggressively to that end state. You're running a ton of events that do indirect damage. You're playing a burn deck. You're playing red and magic. You've got your spells, they're your events, and your lightning bolts are your cards that do indirect damage. And so this deck is built to quickly push the in-game state, spread out a ton of damage, and then win on inevitability at the end of the game where you can't stop it. I think the droid deck is better. And I think in other events, the droid deck will win. Because to play the Ewok deck, you have to be very conscious of all of those things. And, you definitely have to play it more aggressively than you think you probably do. The Chopper droid deck was super cool versus the Satine and the Han versions, I think. But that Ewok deck is really good because a lot of common answers that are put into decks, you have threats and answers. A lot of common answers don't do anything. You have easy pickings, that's great, but you can't easy picking Ewoks. You have, you know what I mean? So will decks adapt to that? Sure. I think Darth Vader's still a pretty hard counter. If it's played by a good player, he's able to get around some of that. But we had, 4 guys play Vader out of a field of 146, 147. You talk about the idea hitting the hand would be good. Get those burn events out so it's just the damage on board. Well, who played Mill? No one. So if you're going into an event against droids and your droid matchup is solid, why wouldn't you play it? It's a relatively straightforward deck that a good player is going to pilot to a good finish. So I guess that's my take on it. But I do think that going forward, if you sit down across from an equally good player where it's nothing but matchup on matchup, playing against an action sheet Vader, all right. I mean, you might win, but good luck. And so the meta will move. It will shift. This is a really good deck for this weekend. But I think the droid decks can adapt. I think they can play things they're not playing right now that help counter some of the stuff that the Ewok deck brings. So I think it's very good. But I think it's also very... it caught a meta that wasn't running answers and wasn't ready for it.
Right.
Had a lot of people, they tested Ewoks, but they hadn't tested that kind of Ewok deck. It's a lot more like a Padme Saw that actually works. Than some of the early Ewok builds. Yeah. So, I guess that's my take on it. I think it's very good. I think it's a very solid deck. But I think that's how I think.
And this is something that that team does really, the Loopers do really well, is read the meta and read what's probably going to happen, and bring a deck, and especially this event kind of plays into their favor, into that strength, because the meta hasn't formed as well, because we've got a new set that's come out and there hasn't been any major events. So they've been able to hold on to these ideas, look and see where the meta kind of is settling based on as many event reports as they can get their hands on, and then bring something that they believe no one's going to expect, right? And that's and they have won. Someone from the Hyperloops has won every single GenCon, every single Continental so far. Because the first year it was Mike versus Joe, and Joe won. This last year was Andrew Cox, and now it's Mike's got the win on this one. And the challenge for them comes to how do they evolve this? How do they read and ride the meta into Nova and into Worlds, because the meta tends to solidify and then find the answers to these decks.
Yeah.
I mean, Ewoks may surprise me, but I would be stunned if that deck won Nova. Just because now that it's been seen, I think it can be beaten. I think the droid decks can beat if they're, packing the right tech. If they're not, sort of... Because they're playing stuff, they don't know what the meta is going to be. They can guess. Droid mirrors all over the place, and it's hard to win because it's an incremental game of, points of damage here, points of damage there, and you're not playing best of 3. So I don't know. I would be really surprised. I still think droids.
Yeah,
is the deck
I agree with you.
Yeah, and that was interesting to see. With the 3 Ewok decks that were in the event, at the end of Swiss, they were 1st, 5th, and 8th. Tons of variations on the Satine droid version, and then you've got the kind of the rainbow, the current flavor of rainbow villain in the Sentinel Messenger, Watt, and either Afra or Jabba. And grand design in those chopper droids, a couple Raylos, which was a surprise to see, but all those lost in the first round of Top Cut, so that's unfortunate. You were happy to see Raylo survive.
My boy Kylo, he's there. It's all good. Everything's fine. I thought it was a healthy Top Cut, really. I mean, there's too much droids. There's too much droid representation. I think anytime you have 40% of your Top Cut as one basic deck, that's a bit of a concern. Had it won the event, I think people would be madder about it.
Right. That's how poor Ayla got herself reeled in a little bit a year ago. A year ago. Months. She talked about this game.
The Jabba deck is. I really like that Jabba deck, but it's got to survive to turn 4 or 5. I don't think that Ewok deck gets under it pretty hard. So, you talk about how that deck evolves going forward, and they'll figure it out. It's got to run some tech for that, I think. The comparison to Ayla with the droids, I liked, Kim. It's similar. It's just super consistent. It's got to top a lot.
Yep.
So.
That always gets the head guard's attention, man. You gotta be quiet. I'll knock you down a peg or two.
Right. I did have to say that I was a big fan, and I didn't realize this happened last year because there were so few players that it affected last year, and it affected so many more this year. That despite tournament guidelines and tournament rules and how to do top cuts and all that stuff, the Continental Championship has a history of allowing the 6 and 2s and up advance to the top cut, and whatever kind of bracket that makes, so that's the bracket you go with. So having a top cut of 22 players, meaning that round 1 is basically a fight for the Sweet 16 by the bottom 12, I believe in this case, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I think that's awesome, and I wish it was something that we'd see a lot more of in top events, because there's nothing worse than being 17 in a top 16 cut.
As someone who has bubbled in and out of X2 top cuts at regionals, I like it. It's good. Let it play out.
Yeah, for sure. Because where was because Nick was seated 19th. Nick Obi, who faced Mike in the finals. Was seeded 19th, so he had to fight to get into the top 16.
Wow, good for him.
And then, fought his way through a Raylo. Sorry, a Satine droids, a Raylo, a Jabba Watt. Oh, sorry, he's the Jabba Watt. A Satine droids, and chopper droids. Wow, so nothing but droids. And then he got to Ewoks.
Yeah, right.
So 6 hours of best of 3 against droids, and then oh, by the way, here's some Ewoks. Good luck.
Well, kind of what I was saying a couple weeks ago, right? You don't bring a deck that can't beat the Gatekeeper, and the Gatekeeper's droid. So I think if you intended to win, both the Ewok deck and the Jabba deck are there because the creators of those decks knew if I sit down across from droids, I like my odds.
Very cool.
That's cool. Yeah, it was an exciting match. Like, it really was.
It was quick, though.
It was. I had an opportunity to log in, and it wasn't. There wasn't much before it was done. Sorry, my battery's going dull. I'm attempting to plug in while we do this. Hey. So yeah, that was. I think I caught a good chunk of it. Then, of course, my headphones were dead at work, so I'm just watching going, well, it's cool, but I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. So, I don't know. How do you guys feel, this Gen Con versus the past couple that have come out, I think this is we were fortunate enough to get more coverage, I think, this time, especially from a streaming perspective, since we've never seen streaming before from this event. But where is this event going in the future? Or in terms of coverage, in terms of Destiny presence, in terms of how FFG is running this event and supporting it going forward.
Well, I think to Mike's point, as long as the game's still doing well, they'll probably let it, take care of itself essentially, because it's ran so well the last couple of years, and I see them keeping it at Gen Con. It's an interesting group. I mean, Gen Con being in Indianapolis, you still have some people that come a decent way because it's Gen Con, but it's hard to give up. Most of the time, if somebody's coming to an event like, they also want to take part in Gen Con because it's such a large con that it is. Mm-hmm. So I think you'll probably see the participation numbers be about the same. And it may have gone down a little bit from last year to this year, for a number of different reasons, really. But it is hard to go spend a lot of money to get to a con, get a room, because it's not cheap to get to Gen Con at all. And then, and if you want to be able to see the rest of the con, it's hard. So you'll always see those high competitive teams there. And then I think it's kind of a different grouping of, I think, different than what you'd see at Worlds, and I think different than what you see at Nova, because Nova has a totally different, I think that's, even though it's on the East Coast, that's a little bit easier convention to get into and just do Destiny, and you're not, if that's all you're interested in, then you're not missing out on as much, I guess is the way to say it. Gen Con, you're missing out on so much when you give up those 2 days.
That's a fair point.
And you had to spend a lot of money just to get into the con for that day that you're not going to see any of.
Gen Con is always Gen Con's always the weekend of my wedding anniversary, so I never go.
That's a big no. That's a big probably no for you.
It's fine.
It looks like you guys had more fun anyway, honestly, Mike.
We dressed up as Harry Potter characters, so
it was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I saw pictures. But yeah, so I'm curious because what is it? It's $35 a day to get into Nova, if that. Is that right?
It's $40 for the weekend, I want to say.
Oh, so okay, so for Gen Con is what, $50 a day, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Nova's still primarily it is a fan-run convention. It is focused almost solely on Warhammer and those style of tabletop miniature games, and just the fact that they added, they were able to talk to FFG and get the Nationals moved there from where they used to be at Origins, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they were at Origins, which.
And for Nova to get those there is a huge win for them, because all of their proceeds go to their charitable foundation, which benefits various organizations such as Doctors Without Borders and Make-A-Wish and all that, and they run their events, right? So when FFG does Gen Con, like FFG OP has to run that event, but when they take the Nationals to Nova. It is the Nova staff who is running that event, and a rep from OP is there just to ensure that everything goes okay. Yeah,
so it's probably easier. That was a smart move. I mean, it wasn't. It's probably much easier and more cost effective for them to run it at Nova, and Nova does a great job of running that event. I didn't participate, and I really wasn't involved with anything FFG related when the Nationals were still at Origins. I might have been playing the first set, but we didn't get in on anything. So,
well, Destiny Nationals were never at Origins.
I didn't think so. Nova's done a great job with that. And like I said, it's a more affordable con to get into if that's what you're going to do. Like, it's cheaper to get, even though you're just outside DC, but it's easier to get into the area too if you were to stay outside and take public transportation or a train or something to get there.
I will posit one more theory about why Gen Con was down a little bit. The prizes were strange. Asajj Venture tokens are sort of an odd choice. I'm not going to go to win that map. I'm not going to go to win those characters. But in the Ewoks, that's awesome. I'm glad Ewoks got Ewok stuff. But
yeah,
it Is that enough to withdraw?
It's not. It's how much I had to pay to get in the door. Yeah. $50 to get in the convention, and then I'm sure there was another registration event.
Well, if I'm paying, let's say I'm paying $300 for a hotel 2 nights, which is good if I'm going to GenCon.
Right. Yep.
And I'm paying $100 to get in, and I'm paying for food, and I'm paying for travel to get to that hotel. I mean, I'm easily in $500 or $600 to play in this tournament, and I'm going to get, if I top cut, tokens with a slash of interest on them.
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
That I'm not going to be able to, even if I don't want them, I'm not going to be able to get very much out of this.
Like, I wonder about that, right? Because it's like, I'm not saying that they were bad, and I'm sorry, Slash of Interest fans, if you're upset, but, you know, it's like, was the pricing really equivalent to the opportunity cost to play in the tournament? I think the answer is no. If I paid that much to go to GenCon, I'm going to go to GenCon and try out game demos and go walk around and enjoy the 80,000 other people that are doing the same thing as me. I love Destiny. I only live like an hour and a half away from GenCon. And, you know, aside from it being my anniversary, it was just like, is this really worth it? Is this the tournament that I'm going to pick to spend money to go to? And the answer is no.
Yep.
Interesting.
I would agree with you on that. Because, I mean, we're about the same distance. And I would rather go to the Nova Open, which even with the drive, which is a significantly longer drive, is still more affordable even with hotel.
Yep. Yeah, because that's probably about 10
or save up for. Well, they're not. I don't know that they haven't done anything at PAX Unplugged, but I could see them eventually doing a GQ there or something.
I think there was.
But that got pushed back to like November. Maybe there was one. Yeah, they pushed that to November now, which is kind of meh. That's to me, that's a hard time of year to expect people to come out for a convention when you get the holidays.
And if we're thinking about Destiny, it's also right after Worlds. Of course, my guess is there's going to be a new set right after Worlds. So
I think you're right.
That could be pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. So, do we think that when we look at U.S. Nationals coming up, we've got events on the East Coast, so it's not quite in the dead center of the country. It tends to attract a lot more players from all the way from Florida and all the way up to New York. I've seen both those metas kind of come and converge there. There is a strong meta in the Richmond and Nova areas, as well as I'm trying to think of where else. There's Pennsylvania, maybe. There's a couple other.
There used to be a pretty big Texas one, but I don't know that it's as active as it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, those groups always tend to converge at Nova, plus your players who tend to travel to all the events are there. Do we feel like what we're seeing here is going to be more or less replicated with a couple, tweaks, and or do we think that there is something that was in the bottom, maybe not in the top cut, that's going to be tweaked and fine-tuned enough to combat these decks?
If your deck can beat droids, play it.
I think that's sound advice, honestly.
Because
there's going to be so many droid decks there. Ewoks and droids will be the two main decks there.
I think the thing about Ewoks, right, is it's like how much can you really alter the answers you pack in your deck to beat that matchup? That's the advantage of Ewoks, I guess. Is it's like, what are people really going to play to stop you? Are people actually be teching in all this stuff? Like for the Raylo decks, it's easy. Play a couple of Quada Breathers and cross your fingers. That deck's got a decent matchup anyway. It's not great, but it's winnable. But if I'm playing a droid deck, it's like, how much am I going to sell out my droid mirror match to beat the Ewok deck? I mean, not every player is Mike. You know what I mean? It's like the Hyperloops guys practice a lot. I don't mean myself. I mean Mike Chen. So it's like, I feel like, I don't know. I think it'll be pretty similar. But I think if you're packing some secret spice, just make sure that you can hold up. And if you can, bring it. Destiny's a small game. We're not talking about MTG where every deck probably has to be net decked after a couple tournaments. You have plenty of freedom to play whatever you come up with. It just it's got to hold up. Talk about your meta game.
Yeah, I think that's wise, sage advice to say that don't go looking to Ewoks as the deck to beat, because if you look at the number of droid decks that made it into the top cut, both on the hero and villain side, honestly.
Yep.
But it really is those the Satine droid builds that you need to look at.
I think the Chopper build might even be the best one of the three.
You think we'll see more of those? There's only a couple that made top cut, but
it's a little harder to play. But I think that it's got a higher ceiling. The Han deck's more aggressive, but the Chopper deck, if you can like play it correctly and rip off that 2 disrupt turn 1, I mean, you feel pretty good about a lot of matchups then.
Oh yeah,
that's interesting. That there is a deck that's really enjoying that early disrupt, because I think disrupt has always been a forgotten side to the game.
It is a bit, but the Ewok deck suffers
as
for
often
it.
as I should. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ewok deck struggles if you can disrupt it consistently. And the droid deck's not dissimilar. You know, they don't want to be burning all their dice on resources if they don't have to.
Right.
Now, that deck can generate, 10 resources probably in a turn if you're playing well. But at the same time, an early disrupt kicks it off a little. Makes it, get off its game. So I like the Chopper version in the mirror and against the Ewok deck.
Derek is asking, wouldn't copycat decks now be a problem?
We knew these decks were.
I think some of them. I think the reason Mike's a very skilled player. Mike Hill and Mike Jim, but Mike Jim's a very skilled player, and he had a lot of opportunity to test with that deck. That I don't think a copycat deck would necessarily, in somebody unexperienced or somebody just trying to meta deck it or net deck it and play it, I don't think they would do as well.
So I don't have the problem, I guess, with net decking that some people do. I think that deck building can be kind of tricky, and if you're just getting into the game, you want to, roll some dice, then sure, net deck to your heart's content. But if you net deck that Ewok deck and you just activate Ewok, and say, why is Across the Galaxy in here? You're going to lose every single one, because that deck has a low floor if it's played poorly. I also think that if they copycat, then they do. You're going to a competitive event, you got to expect people to try to win. So it's like, it would be weird to me if people were like not copycatting.
Mm-hmm.
But if they do, then you got to sort of understand that, okay, I might run into this deck. Not everyone's going to be like a world-class player, but I'm going to run into it. So can I beat it? And that's where you talk about a metagame and maybe all of a sudden you look at your 8 removal cards and 2 of them don't do very much. If I'm playing droids and Ewoks, these cards don't do anything. The classic example I like to use is dodge, because it's really an obvious example. If no one's playing guns, don't play dodge.
Right.
And so, if you look at a card, like a more common card, I guess, that would run into the same problem. Like, Easy Pickings is probably too good not to play, but that would be my example. If everyone played Ewoks, don't play Easy Pickings. It might be the best card in the world, but it doesn't do anything. It does stuff against droids, so you leave it, but it's like, I guess that's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, there will be copycats, but I think that that's normal, and I think that competition breeds innovation. So expect it, be ready for it, and then outsmart it. Play something else. And if there's a deck that people just can't do that to, that's when you talk about a restrict list and things like that. But right now, droids didn't win. I think they're the best deck, but they didn't win. So expect copycats and just be ready for that.
For sure.
Well put, sir.
Well played. There's very little more that we can add to that, I think. So hopefully y'all got to check out the coverage from GenCon. I believe all the footage is still over in the Hyperloop's Twitch, which I'm assuming that at some point, if they haven't already, will be uploaded for prosperity over to YouTube. We are just a little over 3 weeks away from the U.S. National Championship at Nova. If you are following us, if you're watching us live on Twitch, give us a follow and make sure you get notified on when our streams go live, because we will be streaming all of their events, with the minor exception that I believe the Infinite tournament or the Trilogy tournament starts at the end of the Swiss day for Nationals. So we can't do 2 at the same time. But we'll pick up that tournament as soon as the national tournament is over. But yeah, we'll be there for Infinite Trilogy and, of course, the main event, U.S. Nationals for Star Wars Destiny. So check that out.
I'm excited.
That will be cool. I look forward to watching.
And me and Kim and Sarah and my daughter Ray and Ruben will all be there, and we've got some great commentators lined up from the Nova and Richmond regions. Some good friends of ours will be joining the stream to provide their expert knowledge, so you don't have to hear me say, "What does that do?" all the time.
I would kind of like that version of the stream, though. Honestly. Wow, what's that? What a neat play!
I've never seen that. What? Sometimes cards look really different on a stream than what, like, I don't know what it is. Like, you notice colors and stuff, so you're like, I don't even know what that card is. But you have it in a deck at home, because that totally happened a couple times. But
right.
Frankly, that's the coverage this game is missing. I like the excitement.
Oh,
ooh,
well,
look at that.
I can run in front of the camera all the time. You know what? We'll have a secondary camera just in the side corner for crazy antics.
We did have
a little bit, but I like it.
There were a couple times at Worlds that we just had food on the camera, and people got really excited about it.
That's right.
It was in between the show, and somebody set their lunch down, and we were still streaming, and people thoroughly enjoyed it, and I don't know why.
Oh, because the FFG Game Center has those Parmesan fries? Oh, gosh.
They were pretty yummy.
That's good stuff.
I'll have to see if Billy, Billy, friend of the show, and from that region, also streams a D&D game periodically. And the other night, I didn't catch it, but he shared it. Billy fell out of his chair. So we'll have to see if we can keep him strapped in. When he's
Billy's
doing
one of our commentators for Nationals, so...
Yeah, we'll have to keep him strapped in so he doesn't hurt himself.
Seatbelt.
It was fantastic. Like, I even told him it's totally something that I would do. And I have done. Not in a gaming setting, but at work. But I've done it. So.
Anyways, to get back on this train, let's go over our answers from last week's question.
There can be no mistakes this time.
So, we of course asked you what was going to take down the U.S. Continental. Did you spell Continental right? I don't know that you spelled Continental right, Jason.
Thanks.
But
it doesn't matter. You said it correctly. Now move on.
So, and I'm quickly looking to see if anybody got it right. Oh, Tim did.
Yeah.
Tim Sutter called it. So did Tyler Smith. They both called Ewok.
And so Richard Kopaz, he gave us a gif of a dancing Ewok.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
Because it said Disco Ewok. That seems fair. Which is,
Man, sure would be nice if we end up with an alternate art Ewok card we could send these guys.
What? Oh, that.
Anyway. Let's see. Bill Jolly, something new that nobody saw coming.
I don't know if this was something new.
Right.
It was a new version.
I was going to say, they didn't totally see this one coming because of, like, what Mike said earlier, some of the variations. So he gets partial credit.
It's a pretty hard aggro burn deck, so... Yeah, I don't know. I think it's new.
Right.
Derek mentioned I'd love to see Vader take it before he starts his rotation parade.
Wait till Nova. Vader will have his reemergence, I think. He's too good against both of the top decks.
Does that go in the prediction document?
I think it should.
If no one tops them, it's going to be weird to me. Because I think his Ewok matchup... I mean, I understand they have a tech, but I'm sorry, it's too easy to just be like action cheat, fear, and dead minute win. A 2-card combo that gives you essentially a 100% matchup. I understand that that's not going to happen every time when there are counters and that it's just... And in testing, that may not show up. But I refuse to believe there's not a version of that deck that just sort of... Maybe the red action sheet version we saw from the GQ cycle.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I don't know. It's weird to me that that's not sort of an automatic, what if we think about this guy? So you didn't get him at GenCon, but watch going forward.
Dun, dun, dun.
I like how Michael Patrick Lengel says Sabine ?
Question mark. He was close. I mean, he wasn't. Sabine, he was on the right path.
Yeah. If we were playing Infinite, maybe.
Right.
Joshua Levy, something with red villain. With every villain had a red villain in it, but close but no cigar.
I think Josh really likes Thrawn, so
I think you're right. He just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Josh.
Simon Willis says Satine droids, which he was good. He was good in predicting the fact that Satine droids was going to dominate the top cut.
Yep.
Yeah. And the event really was like 25% of the event and 40% of top cut. So.
Crazy.
Wow, look at him throw out those numbers. We should have him on the show more often.
Woo!
And then Jim Goss. One in the group. Jim Goss says Vader, so he's on the Vader train there with Mr. Mike Hill there. So
I'm gonna have to go back and I think I did see Richard's dancing or disco Ewok now.
It's pretty good.
But
I mean, as far as
And
gifts
mentioned
go.
droid, so he was pretty close on par.
Yeah.
You guys are pretty close. Most of you are pretty close.
I
All
had
right.
this eloquent post about why it would probably be a droid counter, and then I just didn't post it. I didn't know it was Ewoks. I wouldn't have said that. I would have said something else probably, but I'm glad all you
You
Ewok
missed your
fans are
moment in
happy.
the sun, Mike.
I'm glad a deck like that made it to the top. I think
It was
anytime
fun.
anytime a deck builder can show that it doesn't take the most expensive cards or the rarest cards to win an event. It's a hope for a lot of people who don't, buy up multiple boxes and build their entire collection on the first day.
I will say, if you're a locals and you can tell somebody the most expensive card in your deck is like a $6 easy picking,
It's pretty good.
it'll probably be a pretty popular initial deck.
Oh, yeah.
Cheap, it's funny. It's a bit of a troll, really, to just set down 6 Ewoks or whatever it is. So, I don't know. I could see that deck being played a lot, locally and just competitively. If you tell someone, "Hey, come with me," and they say, "I don't want to," so I can build your deck for $30.
It's
Yeah,
actually
how do you?
it's a highly competitive deck, but it's also even if it's not played by someone who's got a ton of experience, it can be a fun deck.
Well, yeah, not every deck has to beat GenCon. Yeah, I talk about
Yeah.
competitive feeling of stuff, but at the same time, just for a local event, it's fun. Play it. Who cares? It'd be awesome.
Who cares? Pick off those Ewoks one by one. Anyways. That's
With those sound effects, please.
with those sound effects. Everyone who's watching live, thank you so much. If you have Amazon Prime, it is free to give a subscription to your favorite channel. We hope that we can be considered among those. And it is free for you, and it does benefit us, and you get our cool emote. If you're watching via YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification icon. As soon as we're done streaming all the stuff from Nova, we will flip around all those videos to YouTube so you can see them for the rest of your life. You can check out last year's Nova stream if you want to on our YouTube channel and see what we were able to bring, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that much more this time. If you're listening via audio podcast, please review on your favorite podcasting app. Wow, podcasting app. Thank you so much to Matthew Scott for keeping us honest on every episode and making sure everybody knows that we're going live, so that the thousands of people who see the post that we're going live, and all 7 of you can join us. So thank you. And also,
I do quite like that part.
thank you to our Patreons. Check out patreon.com/thechanceq.
Awesome.
At the $1 level, you can join our hangout and hang out with all the people at the Chance Cube, whether cool or not. And then for $5 or $15, we will send you cool stuff, which I think is actually cool stuff. So that's just
It
me.
is cool stuff. Do I have any of the cards? No. Yes,
No?
I have Watto, but I don't have the other ones. The Ayla is amazing. So that was our latest gift. Was this? I should have brought one up. Was this really awesome Ayla card?
I
She's
can't wait.
slicing a droid in half.
Can't wait for the Ewok one. Ewok one looks so good. And then, of course,
I segued you that earlier, and you didn't do
I know,
So
I didn't
now,
pick it up.
now the excitement's over.
I'm sorry.
It was spoiled already, so.
And of course, head over to the App Store for iOS devices. The Chance Cube's Price Watch is available. You can check out the price of all your favorite cards. We currently have, I believe, 9 or 10 retailers on there, and more coming, as well as soon as I find 5 minutes and a brain, I will. We are beginning to develop our Android version of that app. So keep in
Those things
touch.
don't happen to me at the same time.
No, I can never figure it out, so good luck.
I don't get 5 minutes and a brain at the same time. That's I have a lot.
That's a lot. Head over to our Facebook page. Pinned at the top is next week's question. What is your current favorite playstyle in Star Wars Destiny? So we're talking about whether it's aggro, mid-range, control, mill, diceless, Ewok, murder bears,
Oh boy.
whatever you want to call your
I better get somebody
playstyle.
to one.
Blue mid-range.
There you go. Anything that involves me picking up a deck and playing someone. That's my favorite. Currently, that's my favorite playstyle.
Favorite playstyle. I was sure you were going to say Ewoks.
Well, if I had purchased any of the current sets, maybe it would be.
I am going to literally stick Ewoks in the mail and send it to you.
So this is how good my timing is. I just filed all of Derek's cards that he sent me, which was a lovely gift to get my Convergence set up to par.
Nice.
And just filed them away. They've been sitting sleeved on my counter for well too long at this point.
At least they were sleeved on the
Derek.
counter.
they were sleeved on the counter. I'm hoping to get to the store this week because I miss the people.
I don't
too.
miss you too. I wish life would stop being cray-cray so I can come hang with Mike.
Yeah, come on, Cam. We need you to come back out.
Oh my gosh, I'm dying to come back out. It's just been so crazy.
I think we're here Wednesday and Thursday this week. Is this is free play week, right? I should probably know. I run.
You should know. I cannot keep it straight. I, in fact, created a meeting and went to it last night when it wasn't supposed to happen next Monday. So I made myself crazy and no one called me out on it. They all showed up too.
That's when you know that you have.
And then told me. I was like, well, I guess I'm a leader. You all came, but someone should have said, "Hey, Kim," because I could have got so much done at home last night.
Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
See you guys.
This has been The Chance Cube, a Star Wars Destiny podcast, a non-profit organization dedicated to building community through gaming. Visit our website for all things Star Wars Destiny, including our price watch, meta tracker, and latest articles from the Chance Cube family. Find our latest videos on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and visit us at patreon.com/thechancecube. Your patronage allows us to grow this program and help us give back to the gaming community by sponsoring events, giveaways, and supporting our own community building initiatives. This is Mike Hill, the voice of the Chance Cube. Thanks for listening. The Chance Cube is not affiliated with Fantasy Flight Games, Lucasfilms, or the Walt Disney Company.